Thank you so much. Standing up in front of teachers and headmasters, it's amazing that at times we, as leaders, we sort of migrate and we end up in the corporate world, we end up being wherever we are, and it's so easy for us to actually forget that it's you guys who've actually made it possible for us to be where we are. It's the teachers who have been patient enough with us from the time we were 6 or 5, whenever, until we finish, and we stand where we are because of the sacrifices that people such as yourself make. So thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you for all the sacrifice that you make. I know teaching is one of those professions that unfortunately, in the way that the world has somehow put value to things, has been so undervalued, and yet it's where the real value is. So thank you so much for all that you do. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about leading self, but before I do that, we've actually been sitting for quite a while, so can I ask you to do something for a couple of minutes? If you are sitting next to somebody who you know, please just give them an affirmation, a thank you. Maybe there's something that they've done for you that you've never thanked them for. Please do that. Or maybe it's just a character trait that's in them that you've never affirmed and really just brought it to their attention. Please do that. If it's somebody who you don't know, maybe just share with them what is the most valuable thing that you see in teachers, and just affirm that within them because they are probably carrying that thing. One of the most powerful leadership tools that you can ever use is the tool of affirmations. And affirmations is really where you as a leader are constantly noticing what others around you are doing, and you are in an attitude of being thankful for what they're doing, or even the character traits that you see within them. Because unfortunately in today's society, we seem to only talk to each other when there's a problem. And yet we never positively speak into each other and therefore bring the best that's in people. I like to call that, it's mining the gold in other people. We must be constantly mining the gold in other people. It's speaking positively into them. It's thanking them. It's speaking positively about what you see in them, because we all carry amazing gold within us, but sadly, we live in a society that never brings that gold out. Okay, so let's talk about what we want to talk about today. And again, part of my reason for really thanking you as teachers is I really want to start off with who I believe is one of the foremost leaders ever in the world that has been developed out of this nation. And one of the things that Madiba said is education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And that's really what is in your hands as teachers. And I personally believe that the future prosperity of South Africa, even some of the things that Adam was talking about in terms of where is South Africa going to go, is South Africa going to grow, it's all sitting in the area of, are we going to be able to create functional schools that will produce functional learners that will be released into society as functional contributors towards society. Because if we don't get that cycle right, we can try to do all the other things at the top. But I love that ad, Cremora. It's not at, what is it again? It's not at, but this time it's not at the top, it's at the bottom. We need the educators to actually work well, because that's really where the fruit of South Africa really lies. It's sitting literally in your hands. So, part of the work that I'm involved in is really working with leaders around transformation. And transformation, in my definition of transformation, has absolutely nothing to do with the racial situation. Yes, there is transformation that has to be done in terms of bringing all the gaps that exist in society into place. But the transformation I'm talking about now is the transformation where we take something to an entirely different place of effectiveness, where we take a school from where it is to an entirely different place of effectiveness, a society, a nation, a company, whatever the case is. So we do quite a lot of work in what we call transformational leadership-based projects and development within organizations. So let me talk a little bit about leadership, and then I'll progress on to talking about what are some of the key things that we believe are some tools and keys that perhaps you as leaders can take away and consider as you go about doing your job. So, let's talk about leadership very quickly. At the end of the day, the very basic definition that we put towards leadership is the ability to take an organization, people, from here to there. Leadership is about movement. It's about taking something from a current reality and taking it towards a desired future. So as a leader, you need to understand, first of all, what is that desired future? What is that vision that you are looking to get to? And where are you right now? But another critical element is also understanding what are the barriers that are in the middle that are stopping us from going where we want to go. Because really, that's where leadership is really going to come in. It's about how do I take people through the barriers and the constraints that we are facing. And by the way, transformational leadership is a continuous improvement cycle. Because once you get to where you think you need to go, you need to be thinking even further. How do we take it even further? What is the role of leadership very quickly? As a leader, we need to be good at casting vision. You carry the vision, you cast the vision. But once you cast vision, it's then very important to move into a servant role. Because as a leader, it's not about power, it's about how do I cast a vision, and because I'm leading people from a current reality to a desired future, how do I serve those people to help them understand what they need to do to get to this vision? That serving could very well involve teaching, training, and equipping. And again, as Adam said earlier on, it doesn't mean that Adam has to be doing the teaching, the training, the equipping, but as the leader, he's paying for it. He sees it within his radar that his people need to go through the teaching, the training, the equipping, and the empowering so that they can deliver the best of what they can deliver into the organization. And as a leader, I then need to let the people go. They go and do what they need to do, and as a good leader, I then need to evaluate to make sure that they are getting done what needs to get done. Another critical thing with leadership is understanding the fact that we need to have a system of responsibility and accountability built into all of this. Because if I can't take responsibility for the ultimate reaching of that destination, then I can't lead in a way where people will actually follow me because I'm influencing in the right way. So responsibility, accountability for performance also comes in. But as a leader, we also need to understand, again, I'll keep coming back to Adam so that I can link this back to what Adam was talking about. He talked about the seven cards, the seven hearts. That's partly, again, talking about the purpose. So what's the real purpose of all of this? And once I understand purpose, once I understand the mission, then I can begin to build objectives, strategies, and actions. Because again, leadership, getting people from here to there, from a current reality to a desired future requires that we actually put structure in place in terms of what we want to do. One of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now as a country, sadly enough, is that I believe we are critically lacking the leadership that can cast a vision that will get us excited as South Africans so that we pull in the same direction towards that vision. So as a leader, it's critical, the ability to cast a vision, because people will follow you as a result of your vision. You see, the days of leadership where it's all about command and control and people are forced to follow you, that's not the leadership that we're talking about. We need leadership where people follow you because you are positively influencing them with the right vision. How do we make all of this happen? I believe one of the greatest attributes in my own leadership, and I will share a little bit as we go on where I come from in terms of from a leadership perspective. But one of the main things, if not the main thing that I've learned in leadership, is that to intentionally control my thoughts and how I respond to situations has become the most critical thing of leadership. It's all about how I control my thoughts and respond to any given situation that I have to deal with. Because you see, at the end of the day, each one of us is 100% in control of your thoughts. There is absolutely no one in this world who can control your thoughts except yourself. And therefore, if you are the only one who can control your thoughts are what will drive your feelings. And your feelings are what will drive your behavior. So therefore, if no one else can control my thoughts, I am 100% in control of my behavior. No one can cause me to do anything. No one can cause me to respond in any other way other than what my thoughts decide I'm going to respond. So I found that in leadership, if we can be leaders who can build the capacity to intentionally control our thoughts, and therefore how we respond to any given situation, we are now in a position where we can begin to lead and also have influence over people in a very powerful way where we can achieve the objectives that we want to achieve. So let's talk a little bit about this in terms of how this looks like. So events are taking place around us all the time. And as those events take place, we look at those events through whatever lens that we look through. And this goes into our thoughts. And one of the greatest dangers within leadership is to allow perception and also to be offended. As soon as you allow perception to drive your thinking process, and secondly, for as long as you allow offense, where you get offended, to drive your thinking process, your ability to lead in a way that will bring about real change becomes limited. Because you see, as a leader, once you're dealing with a lot of the constraints and the obstacles towards getting people to a destination, I can guarantee you there's a lot of open doors for perceptions and offense as you deal with difficult issues. So perceptions and offense, if that is the mindset that we have, it will drive the feelings and it will drive our behavior in response to events. So this is how chronologically how it's all working out. So let's talk very quickly about this trap of perceptions. You see, perceptions are what I believe to be true about somebody else or a particular situation. That's a perception. It's what I believe to be true, but it might not be true. But if I'm building all my decision-making processes and reacting to events based on a perception, which is what I believe to be true about somebody else, or what I believe to be true about the situation, I already start making my decisions and my behavior from the wrong platform or from the wrong foundation. So the hardest part about listening is not the hardest part about listening is not to fill the blanks with your perceptions, but to clear the mind and be willing to understand something new. And you see, part of the challenge again that we are facing in South Africa right now, because of the history where we come from, we have built a lot of mindsets around perceptions. We don't get to talk to each other and discover something new about the other person or the situation that we're dealing with, and therefore we end up making decisions based on what we believe to be true, what might not be true. The trap of offense. One of the things that I've also discovered, that as a leader, or any person for that matter, as soon as you are offended, you can't think or see straight. Your capacity to actually make the right logical decisions is severely hampered when you are offended. You see, offense is that place where I say, irrespective of what you say, I am right. I've now put my perception above everything that you have to say to me, and therefore what you have to say is completely irrelevant. And therefore, I am right in this situation, and I shut my ears down, and I can't hear any further. So, the key element there is, as leaders, let's be aware of the trap of being offended. Because when we get offended, we are immediately limiting our capacity to be able to make the right decisions and to lead people in the right way. And by the way, I've already said that I will make all these slides available so that they can be emailed out if you want the slides. Okay, so this comes back down to thinking. Thinking is to create something new, not replace something that is already stored in our memory. The reality is most people don't think. They just take what is already in their memories and base their decisions and their behavior on that. One of the things I've come to also understand is that often one of the greatest attributes of a leader is the ability to think afresh. Because you see, when you have memories in your mind, when you see certain situations or certain people, the way our brain works is so often we make a decision based on memory rather than hearing the facts for they are at that given moment in time. And whenever we do that, we are actually not thinking. And therefore, when I speak to a lot of leaders, even in the corporate world, I actually say to them, guys, are you truly a thinking organization, or are you an organization that is making decisions based on memory? Because I believe the thinking organizations are the organizations that will be the most successful, because I have the ability to take fresh information all the time and make decisions based on fresh information. Again, this is extremely relevant and critical for the future of South Africa. Because sadly, even as we sit across the table, across races, we are making decisions and conclusions based on memory and perceptions and offense, and therefore we are failing to come into unity so we can make the right decisions. Because a lot of the decisions that are being made right now are decisions that are being made out of memory and offense and perception and not fresh thinking. What we desperately need is fresh thinking. So, how am I reacting to events? I'm looking at events, they come into my mind. I believe as leaders, there's a little matrix in all people, there's a little matrix that's in there that I believe we need to engage. And that matrix is basically saying, well, based on what's happening right now, what are my core values around this? What are my core beliefs around this? But another critical thing that impacts our thinking is, but who am I? What's my self-identity? The lesser I am confident in who I am, the more I will get offended. The lesser I'm confident with who I am, the more I will keep holding on to perceptions than wanting to hear what other people have to say. So part of this is really saying, what is it that's driving my thinking process? Because as a leader, a critical tool for leadership is the ability to listen and to ask so that you can get understanding. Leadership is not all about commanding people to do things. One of the most undervalued tools and attributes of a leader is the ability to listen, to ask questions so that you can understand. And part of that requires an attitude of humility and respect for the other people. You see, humility and respect says, I don't know everything. Humility and respect says, I could be wrong. I want to hear what you have to say. But you see, once those are not in place, you will think that you know everything, and therefore we end up making those bad decisions. You see, it allows us to come to a place where we can now deal with things from a place of truth and respect, feel from a place of truth and respect, and therefore behave very differently if we are in that place. So it's about being true to myself. And being true to myself is asking the question, do I change my behavior based on how other people behave? See, what I ended up realizing is that if I have a particular value system, personally, core beliefs and a self-identity, if I was to get into a discussion with Dina, for example, and Dina shouts at me or swears, if I now behave according to the way that Dina has behaved, where I now change my core value to now behave in the way that she has behaved, the question is, am I allowing Dina to control who I am? Because if I am truly who I say I am, and this is the core value, the core belief of how I want to behave, why should I change my behavior based on what other people are doing? Why can I not behave the same all the time? Whether you swear at me, whether you curse at me, whether you say, Patrick, what you're doing is awesome, how do I behave the same all the time? See, part of that is a function of self-leadership and self-assessment. So, do I allow other people to control my behavior? And the statement there that I really want to make is, don't allow other people to control how you behave. Because when you do that, that is the ultimate level of slavery and bondage. When you allow your behavior to be determined by other people, when you have your core values in terms of what behavior should be, you've literally given control to other people as to how you behave. And that's where we completely lose influence as leaders. So, will I stick to a core value from my core belief? So if I have a core belief that says to me, you have heard that it is said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love that is unselfishly seek the best or higher good for your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. If that's a core belief I have, you have different core beliefs. If that is a core belief that I have, then should I change my behavior because somebody else is coming against me with something else, or do I stick to it? Will I seek the higher good even of the person who is swearing at me because I am comfortable with who I am? So if he calls me a dog, you see, when somebody calls you a dog, if you are not secure with who you are, that statement will offend you. But if you are secure with who you are, that statement is actually a statement you will laugh at, and you will feel sorry for the person calling you that, because it means that they have something that they are trying to deal with. See, as leaders, we need to be standing on what we believe to be true, and therefore we become influencers who change people for the positive. Otherwise, we get swept into the negativity, and we get swept into the culture, even sadly, that we are seeing sweeping across South Africa. Is it because South Africa has evil people everywhere? Absolutely not. I believe it's because South Africa have people who have core values, but who are compromising on what their core values are. So, you see, for us to understand this, for me to have gotten to the point of understanding this, I needed to have done a self-evaluation on myself. And this is where because you see, before we can become true influential and transformational leaders in society, we need to have gone through the evaluation of ourselves. Do I understand what is the foundation of my core belief? What is the core values that I will stick to all the time? If integrity is a core value within me, then I need to be evaluating my own performance on a daily basis to make sure that I'm being true to who I am. If being honest is a core value that I've identified, then I need to be evaluating myself on a daily basis. Have I been honest in all my dealings? Because it's about being true to self. Once we are true to self, we can then make the impact that we need to make in society. The biggest obstacle towards being true to ourselves and evaluating ourselves is often this horrible thing called pride. And for me, this is where I was 7 to 8 years ago. Let me just share with you very quickly a little bit of my background. And by the way, I'm glad to be here with my wife. It's always good when I can have the opportunity to be with her at events. We are both originally from Zimbabwe. We came into South Africa in 1994. As a computer engineer, I worked for Denel Informatics, which was part of Arms Corps in Pretoria, and left Denel, worked for Hewlett-Packard, HP, for many years. I headed up one of the telecommunications division for HP. I joined Oracle South Africa as a strategic sales director for a season, and my last corporate job was sales director for another American multinational computer sciences corporation. In all of this, I held a leadership role in title, but as I always say to people now, my behavior was not the leadership that I'm speaking about here, because that behavior led to a lifestyle of command control type of leadership, because I was insecure in myself. It led to even, unfortunately, even issues at a home and a marriage perspective with my children, my wife, etc., until I had the wake-up call around beginning to understand what is my purpose and why am I actually really here. So part of my desire now in terms of what we do is very similar again to Adam, where Adam mentioned about growing Africa. I have a deep discontentment in my very heart that this continent carries the abundance of wealth more than any other continent in the world, and therefore why do we continue to be the begging bowl of the world? That's what drives me to do what we do. So without commitment to self-leadership, one cannot become an effective leader. And you see again, there's some wisdom that says, why do you notice the small piece of dust that is in your friend's eye, but you don't notice the big piece of wood that is in your own? Why do you say to your friend, let me take that piece of dust out of your eye? Look at yourself first. You still have a big piece of wood in your own eye. You are a hypocrite. First, take out the wood out of your own, then you will clearly see the dust in your friend's eye. See, part of the time is we're so busy looking at what's happening across the fence that we never deal with what's going on in here. That's a critical leadership principle. Again, Stephen Covey says, look at the weakness of others with compassion, not accusation. It is not what they're doing or should be doing that's the issue. The issue is your own chosen response to the situation and what you should be doing. If you start to think the problem is out there, stop yourself. That thought is the problem. It's not out there, it's happening in here. And as I finish off, all I want to do is just to say, basically, even with this, the little bit that I've said to you now, we work in organizations where we work with teams in organizations, and we literally see organizations turn around just because leadership start thinking differently, but also leadership start thinking. And therefore, I believe a lot of the potential that's in organization is lost because leaders are not thinking. And leaders are thinking that the problem is out there, whereas they need to look right here first so that they can lead. The greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. And I think this should be there in everything that we do. Yes, we might fall, but it's about, are we going to rise up each time? I believe South Africa right now is desperately looking for leaders who will actually take South Africa on a different level. But we have to do it differently. So I really thank you again for this opportunity. I hope some of these tools will be useful for you.